This is the new Cervélo R5. It is the company's latest iteration of its climber's bike or its Grand Tour racing bike. It's light, it's stiff, and of course, it's fast. Some of the more remarkable features on the latest R5 are things that have been taken away. Can you see the hoses and cables? No, of course you can't. Like with most high-end road bikes, these things are now taken away and taken out of sight. The latest R5 uses a system similar to that of the Cervélo Caledonia, which was introduced in 2020. The hoses and any wires run beneath the tops of the handlebars and then into the stem. It's a carbon stem by Cervélo, it's the ST31. These hoses and wires go then into the head tube and in front of the steerer tube. Everything is out of sight and neat. Now, integration looks good, but let's be honest, sometimes on the maintenance front it can be just a bit of a pain. Cervélo has made things a little less painful with its spacers. Now these spacers split in two, so you can move them above or beneath the stem pretty easily. I put all three 5mm spacers beneath the stem, and then there's also a 5mm bearing top cap. So that 20mm of space puts me in a pretty good aggressive position. However, if I'm being completely honest, to really fine-tune my fit, I should probably run a 90mm stem instead of a 100mm stem on this size 54 bike. Still, I've taken the bike on some long rides and was pretty comfortable throughout. Other changes include a longer head tube. It's anywhere from 10 to 15mm longer than the previous generation of R5, and that of course depends on frame size. What that means is engineers were able to get things more aerodynamic right there at the front of the head tube. And aerodynamics, they're not a priority on this climber's bike, but as with most climber's bikes, designers are trying to get any aero gains that they can where they can. Cervélo has been using tubes that are slippery in the wind longer than most bike manufacturers. So that's why I find it a bit striking that the down tube is actually less aero. Now this is Cervélo's own admission. What they did there is they reduced surface area to take down the weight. They did the same with the top tube. Now all of this was done to just make the overall bike lighter. Also, the top tube, and seat stays, their junction is lower, 15mm lower than the previous frame. That gives you more seat post, and with it exposed, there's more flex and it makes your long rides just a little more comfortable. Up at the front fork, designers added more flex. The feedback from the pros was that the fork was just too darn stiff. So what happened was engineers added more longitudinal flex while keeping the lateral stiffness the same. So with that increased flex, you have more comfort and a bit more control, but that lateral stiffness is still really important, especially in hard cornering on screaming descents. Most of that fine-tuning happened in the front fork blades. The fork and frame can accommodate 34C tires. That's pretty wide for a climber's bike. It's getting into that cyclocross territory. Cervélo says the R5 is 130 grams lighter than before. That should allow pro teams to get their bikes pretty easily to the UCI's 6.8 kilogram minimum. This bike is 7.6 kilograms. It's spec'd with SRAM's second-tier wireless group set, the Force ETAP Axis. It has a Quark D0 power meter for measuring all those watt bombs that you're chucking on climbs. It rolls on Cervélo-designed reserve wheels. Up front, there's a rim depth of 34mm, and out back, there's a rim depth of 37mm. Now, what I found slightly striking, what caught my attention, was that the hubs are by Zip. not DT Swiss, which are the regular hubs that are spec'd on reserve wheels. I asked Cervélo about this, and as you know, the whole bike industry with its supply chain challenges has to be creative. And in this case, Zip is helping Cervélo out with these wheels on the R5. The handling is sharp, and as I mentioned before, the bike feels great over many kilometers. Cervélo has done a good job of tweaking the already fantastic R5, and they've made it even better.